Welcome back. The Information Regulator is set to outline the steps to follow to Justice Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi before the publication of the Sex Offenders Register. This is to ensure that the list complies with the Protection of Personal Information Act, or POPI. The Justice Minister has had to delay the release of the list as it's not aligned with our current laws. Let's find out why. Joining us is Advocate Pansy Tlakula, who's the chairperson of the Information Regulator. Advocate Tlakula, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for coming on to our program. It sounds from just from the timing and from the limits to what can be done insofar as the Sex Offenders Register is concerned, that the minister should not have, this is the Justice Minister, should not have announced plans for the register to be published in the first place. It was meant to be published last Friday because it very clearly clashes with our current laws.
Yes, definitely, Michelle, and good afternoon to you and to your viewers. The Information Regulator welcomes the decision of the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development not to publish the register. It would have been premature for her to do that, and we are pleased that she consulted us. You see, the law provides that the register, her own law provides, which is the Criminal Procedure Act, provides that the register is confidential and it cannot be disclosed to anyone. So with those provisions in the law, it is impossible for her to disclose the register. So what she has to do is to ensure that the law is amended before the register can be made public.
I'm trying to understand, Advocate Tlakula. So the right to privacy in this instance, is it too simple to say that it outweighs the issue at play, which is that communities want to know who the people they live next door to possibly are?
No, we are not saying that at all. And we have not even taken the decision that the register should not be made public. At the moment, the law provides that the register is confidential and cannot be disclosed. So she has to deal with that aspect of the law. That is why we are advising her to amend the law so that the law can actually provide for the disclosure of or the publication of the register. So that's the first hurdle. The hurdle that she has is the law itself. As we speak, there is no policy, there is no legislation that allows her to publish the register. So she has to ensure that, there is a law that then allows her to publish the register. Once the law is there, it could be that we don't need a new law. It could be that she can just get the offending, if I can call it that, or the prohibitive sections of the Criminal Procedure Act to be amended. And once she has done that, then we will then have to look at those provisions that have been amended and determine whether those provisions are in line with the Protection of Personal Information Act. For instance, the Protection of Personal Information Act talks about the retention period for any personal information that is processed. It has to be retained for a specific period or in accordance with the provisions of the law. We have to look at the security measures that will have been put in place to ensure that the information is secured. We will have to look at processes that will have been put in place to ensure that those who want to update the personal information on the register can do so. So at this point in time, we're not even analyzing the law against POPIA because there is no law. The law that is on the table prohibits the disclosure of the register, and it also says the register is confidential.
Right, and that's the Criminal Procedure Act you're talking about. So,
yes.
so would that mean then, Advocate Tlakula, that possibly we would need two amendments here, one to the Criminal Procedure Act and one to POPIA?
No. We don't need the amendment to POPIA. We need the amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act.
I see.
And once the amendment has been done, then we're then going to look at that amendment against POPIA to look at whether the amendment complies with POPIA or not.
I see. So I can't imagine that this is something that will be achieved in even a matter of weeks, Advocate Tlakula. How long do you think a process of this nature ordinarily would take, the reworking of legislation?
Well, it depends on the speed with which the minister can convince his, or not his, her colleagues in cabinet to fast track the amendment of the Criminal Procedure Act. I think it can be done if this amendment process can be fast tracked, because I mean, the publication of the sexual offences register is not new. Other countries do that.
Right.
And I think it is important to say that I think in this country, given the scourge of gender-based violence and rape, probably that register can help, depending on what it seeks to achieve, and of course, subject to its compliance with POPIA.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and in relation to what you've just said about gender-based violence levels in our country, that's why so many people, people in South Africa have said they want to be able to check that the people they entrust with their children would not be on this list. And just for clarity, Advocate Tlakula, organizations, authorities, employers, particularly employers of people who work with children, they do have access to this information at the moment.
Definitely they do. That is why it's surprising that the register has been there, I'm told, since 2009, or 19, I'm not sure, I'm speaking subject to correction, but it has been there for a while. And we were also informed during our consultation with the Department of Justice that their biggest client is the Department of Basic Education, because as they employ teachers, they check their names against that register. And one is baffled how, even in the education system, we find people still being employed despite the fact that they have, a history of sexual abuse. So we have also to look at the effectiveness of that register. To what extent has it been able to prohibit people with a, history of sexual violence, or even with people who have been convicted of sexual violence? How are they able to find themselves in the system such as education, despite the fact that the register has been there for a number of years?